Hello, people. Finished a book, The Swerve, subtitled How the World Became Modern. I picked this up at Books A Million, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And I've been done with this book for a few days. In fact, I kind of feel like shit today, but I thought I got to do this video because I'm almost done with another book. So, the author's name is Stephen Greenblatt. And I usually don't even mention that, but the guy's is actually a wonderful author. In fact, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this book justice. This was a little gem. Not a super long book. Sometimes I reread pages and paragraphs because I don't understand them, but not this one. I reread stuff in this one because it's just so wonderful. It made me actually interested in philosophy a little bit, and I typically, I don't really care for that. But, and also there was a big long chapter just on books, my favorite thing in the world. So, I got to get to my notes here because I got a lot of notes. There's 266 pages. This was published in 2011. And the book kind of follows this guy. He's an Italian guy. He was a scribe. He also just was a gopher for Pope John the 23rd, who, during a schism that they had, there was actually 3 popes for a little while. He ends up getting thrown in jail. But the guy's name that they follow a little bit throughout the book is Poggio Bracciolini. Poggio, is that Poggio? I don't know. But I actually know quite a bit about the guy. Poggio finds this book in 1417, but they talk about the rest of Poggio's life also. But what Poggio does, when he loses his job because his pope that he was the scribe for is thrown in jail. So all of a sudden Poggio is unemployed. So for a little while anyway, Poggio travels around to some of these monasteries. A lot of them are in Germany, and he looks through their library, and he looks for old books, and he finds one. He finds one that has been out of circulation for a long time. He doesn't find the original. It's not a scroll that he finds, it's a book. So it's already been copied once, and Poggio hires somebody to copy it, and he gets it back into circulation. And the book that he has found is called On the Nature of Things by a guy named Lucretius. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. On the Nature of Things was written over 2,000 years ago. It just sounds like it's a very amazing book. Lucretius talks about atoms. He talks about the nature of things. I may have to get this book and try and read it. In my life, I've been unsuccessful trying to read big, long poems. And that's what On the Nature of Things is. It's like a 7,400 line poem. I've read a couple of books. I've read the Iliad, and I've read the Song of Roland. But I specifically sought out books that had been rewritten and what they call diversified. So those are the 2 that I've read, because I have another copy of the Iliad. I don't even think I made it 10 pages into that. I got to get to my reading because I have got a lot of stuff marked here. This is just a wonderful book. It's the kind of book that when you finish it, you're like, fuck. Uh, am I ever gonna find a book this enjoyable? Second paragraph, page 32. And the swerve apparently comes right out of the nature of things. It's something that Lucretius talked about, atoms moving around and swerving. A little bit of coffee. Second paragraph. Poggio possessed one further gift that set him apart from virtually all the other book-hunting humanists. He was a superbly well-trained scribe, with exceptionally fine handwriting, great powers of concentration, and a high degree of accuracy. It is difficult for us at this distance to take in the significance of such qualities. Our technologies for producing transcriptions, facsimiles, and copies have almost entirely erased what was once an important personal achievement. That importance began to decline, though not at all precipitously, even in Poggio's own lifetime. For by the 1430s, a German entrepreneur, Johann Gutenberg, began experimenting with a new invention, movable type, which would revolutionize the production and transmission of text. By the century's end, printers, especially the great Aldus in Venice, would print Latin texts in a typeface whose clarity and elegance remained unrivaled after 5 centuries. That typeface was based on the beautiful handwriting of Poggio and his humanist friends. What Poggio did by hand to produce a single copy would soon be done mechanically to produce hundreds. Bottom of 39, top of 40. There was a lot of stuff that I did not mark in this, too, that I wanted to read. Most books in the ancient world took the form of scrolls, like the Torah scrolls that Jews use in their services to this day. But by the 4th century, Christians had almost completely opted for a different format, the Codex, from which our familiar books derive. The Codex has the huge advantage of being far easier for readers to find their way about in. The text can be conveniently paginated and indexed, and the pages can be turned quickly to the desired place. Not until the invention of the computer with its superior search functions could a serious challenge be mounted to the Codex's magnificently simple and flexible format. Only now have we begun once again to speak of scrolling through a text. Bottom of 42. Only the remarkable durability of the parchment used in these codices kept the ideas of the ancients alive at all. And as the humanist book hunters knew, even strong material was no guarantee of survival. Working with knives, brushes, and rags, monks often carefully washed away the old writings. Virgil, Ovid, Cicero, Seneca, Lucretius, and wrote in their place the texts that they were instructed by their superiors to copy. The task must have been a tiresome one, and for the very rare scribe who actually cared about the work he was erasing, an excruciating one. If the original ink proved tenacious, it could still be possible to make out the traces of the texts that were written over. A unique 4th century copy of Cicero's On the Republic remained visible beneath a 7th century copy of St. Augustine's Meditation on the Psalms. The sole surviving copy of Seneca's book on friendship was deciphered beneath an Old Testament inscribed in the late 6th century. These strange layered manuscripts, called palimpsests, from the Greek for scraped again, have served as the source of several major works from the ancient past that would not otherwise be known. But no medieval monk would have been encouraged to read, as it were, between the lines. So you wonder, where some of the old books have gone. They scraped the words off and wrote over them. Page 71. and this is just a quote by Gustave Flaubert, but I have to find it. Here it is. Just when the gods had ceased to be, and the Christ had not yet come, there was a unique moment in history between Cicero and Marcus Aurelius when man stood alone. I'm not sure if that's really true, but I like Flaubert. Page 80. You see, I'm just barely getting through this thing. This is a quote from Epicurus, who I learned a little bit about in here. I'm trying to figure out how I can live an Epicurean lifestyle. Maybe eventually I'll figure it out. If I was living an Epicurean lifestyle right now, I would be doing this video on the porch of my cabin, drinking coffee and bundled up because it's like 20 degrees up there today. Against other things, it is possible to obtain security, but when it comes to death, we human beings all live in an unwalled city. I got like 3 pages of notes here. Bottom of 82. The actual material disappearance of the books was largely the effect of climate and pests. Though papyrus and parchment were impressively long-lived, far more so than either our cheap paper or computerized data, books inevitably deteriorated over the centuries. Even if they managed to escape the ravages of fire and flood, the ink was a mixture of soot from burnt lamp wicks, water, and tree gum that made it cheap and agreeably easy to read, but also water-soluble. A scribe who made a mistake could erase it with a sponge. A spilled glass of wine or a heavy downpour and the text disappeared, and that was only the most common threat. Rolling and unrolling the scrolls or poring over the codices, touching them, dropping them, coughing on them, allowing them to be scorched by fire from the candles, or simply reading them over and over eventually destroyed them. Page 93, second paragraph. This is an event that I've read about several times. The murder of Hypatia signified more than the end of one remarkable person. It effectively marked the downfall of Alexandrian intellectual life and was the death knell for the whole intellectual tradition that underlay the text that Poggio recovered so many centuries later. The museum, with its dream of assembling all texts, all schools, all ideas, was no longer at the protected center of civil society. In the years that followed, the library virtually ceased to be mentioned, as if its great collections, virtually the sum of classical culture, had vanished without a trace. They had almost certainly not disappeared all at once. Such a momentous act of destruction would have been recorded. But if one asks, where did all the books go? The answer lies not only in the quick work of the soldier's flames and the long, slow, secret labor of the bookworm, it lies symbolically, at least, in the fate of Hypatia. Of course, Hypatia was murdered by a Christian mob. Second paragraph, 185. It's a little bit longer jump there. By now, much of what On the Nature of Things claims about the universe seems deeply familiar, at least among the circle of people who are likely to be reading these words. If you catch that there, at least among the circle of people who are likely to be reading these words, what the author there is saying is that at least, in my semi-intelligent people are reading this book. People that would never read this or would never finish this, they're fucking stupid idiots anyway. After all, many of the work's core arguments are among the foundations on which modern life has been constructed. But it is worth remembering that some of the arguments remain alien and that others are hotly contested, often by those who gladly avail themselves of the scientific advances they helped to spawn. And to all but a few of Poggio's contemporaries, most of what Lucretius claimed, albeit in a poem of startling, seductive beauty, seemed incomprehensible, unbelievable, or impious. The book goes on to give a list of the things that are in. I think I'm just going to read. I don't have this here, but some of the things that are in the book. Everything is made of invisible particles. We all know it. The elementary particles of matter, the seeds of the things, are eternal. The elementary particles are infinite in number, but limited in shape and size. All particles are in motion and in infinite void. The universe has no creator or designer. Everything comes into being as a result of a swerve, the particles moving. The swerve is the source of free will. Nature ceaselessly experiments, evolution. The universe was not created for or about humans. Humans are not unique. Human society began not in a golden age of tranquility and plenty, but in a primitive battle for survival. The soul dies. There is no afterlife. Death is nothing to us. All organized religions are superstitious delusions. Religions are invariably cruel. There are no angels, demons, or ghosts. The highest goal of human life is the enhancement of pleasure and the reduction of pain. The greatest obstacle to pleasure is not pain, it is delusion. Understanding the nature of things generates deep wonder. And this is written, over 2,000 years ago. Bottom of 202. We do not know how the German monks who copied the Latin verses and kept them from destruction responded. Nor do we know what Poggio Bracciolini, who must at least have glanced at them as he salvaged the poem from oblivion, thought they meant. Certainly almost every one of the poem's key principles was an abomination to right-thinking Christian orthodoxy. But the poetry was compellingly, seductively beautiful, and we can see with hallucinatory vividness what at least one Italian, later in the 15th century, made of them. We have only to look at Botticelli's great painting of Venus, ravishingly beautiful, emerging from the restless matter of the sea. Like I said in the beginning, there's no way that my stupid little video is going to do justice to this book or to Lucretius's poetry. Bottom of 203, top of 204. When the manuscript of On the Nature of Things finally did reach him, Poggio evidently sent it off at once to Niccolo Nicolai in Florence, either because the scribe's copy was crudely made or simply because he wanted a version for himself. Poggio's friend undertook to transcribe it. The transcription in Nicolai's elegant hand, together with the copy made by the German scribe, spawned dozens of further manuscript copies. More than 50 are known to survive and were the sources of all 15th century and early 16th century printed editions of Lucretius. Poggio's discovery thus served as the crucial conduit through which the ancient poem, dormant for 1,000 years, re-entered circulation in the world. In the cool gray and white Laurentian library that Michelangelo designed for the Medici, Nicolai's copy of the scribe's copy of the 9th century copy of Lucretius's poem Codex Laurentius 35.30 is preserved. One of the key sources of modernity, it is a modest book, bound in fading, tattered red leather inlaid with metal, a chain attached to the bottom of the back cover. There is little to distinguish it physically from many other manuscripts in the collection, apart from the fact that a reader is given latex gloves to wear when it is delivered to the desk. And the author introduces me to a gentleman by the name of Giordano Bruno. And 238, second and third paragraph. Bruno was a writer, a philosopher, who agreed with on the nature of things, and he got the attention of the Catholic Church. They asked him to recant his ideas. Second and third paragraph, 238. Copernicus's assertion that the Earth was not the fixed point at the center of the universe, but a planet in orbit around the sun, was still, when Bruno championed it, a scandalous idea. Anathema, both to the church and to the academic establishment. And Bruno managed to push the scandal of Copernicanism still further. There was no center to the universe at all, he argued, neither earth nor sun. Instead, he wrote, quoting Lucretius, there were multiple worlds where the seeds of things in their infinite numbers would certainly combine to form other races of men, other creatures. Each of the fixed stars observed in the sky is a sun, scattered through limitless space. Many of these are accompanied by satellites that revolve around them as the Earth revolves around our sun. The universe is not all about us, about our behavior and our destiny. We are only a tiny piece of something inconceivably larger, and that should not make us shrink in fear. Rather, we should embrace the world in wonder and gratitude and awe. These were extremely dangerous views, every one of them, and it did not improve matters when Bruno, pressed to reconcile his cosmology with Scripture, wrote that the Bible was a better guide to morality than to charting the heavens. Many people may have quietly agreed, but it was not prudent to say so in public, let alone in print. Second and last paragraph, page 240. Before an audience of spectators, Bruno was forced to his knees and sentenced as an impenitent, pernicious, and obstinate heretic. He was no Stoic. He was clearly terrified by the grisly fate that awaited him. But one of the spectators, a German Catholic, jotted down strange words that the obstinate heretic had spoken at the moment of his conviction and excommunication. He made no other reply than, in a menacing tone, "You may be more afraid to bring that sentence against me than I am to accept it." On February 17th, 1600, the defrocked Dominican, his head shaved, was mounted on a donkey and led out to the stake that had been erected in the Campo di Foria. He had steadfastly refused to repent during the innumerable hours in which he had been harangued by teams of friars, and he refused to repent or simply to fall silent now at the end. His words are unrecorded, but they must have unnerved the authorities, since they ordered that his tongue be bridled. They meant it literally. According to one account, a pin was driven into his cheek, through his tongue, and out the other side. Another pin sealed his lips, forming a cross. When a crucifix was held up to his face, he turned his head away. The fire was lit and did its work. After he was burned alive, his remaining bones were broken into pieces, and his ashes, the tiny particles that would, he believed, re-enter the joyous, eternal circulation of matter, were scattered. Now there's a statue of Bruno. There's a picture of it in the book. They have some wonderful pictures in the middle of this book. Pictures of Poggio's handwriting, everything. Last paragraph, page 262. Among those for whom Lucretius was still a crucial guide, before this absorption had become complete, was a wealthy Virginia planter with a restless, skeptical intelligence and a scientific bent. Thomas Jefferson owned at least 5 Latin editions of On the Nature of Things, along with translations of the poem into English, Italian, and French. It was one of his favorite books, confirming his conviction that the world is nature alone and that nature consists only of matter. Still more, Lucretius helped to shape Jefferson's confidence that ignorance and fear were not necessary components of human existence. Fantastic book. If you ever see it, get it, read it. You'll love it. Thanks for watching.